Mentorship, mental health, and the love of the game, presented by Dominic Stringer. Hello, reviewers and peers. I want to take a quick moment and show off my student athletes. You see the lovely young man? All right, let's get into it now. For starters, my name is Dominic Stringer. I moved to Missouri 6 years ago to follow my dreams of playing professional basketball. Shortly after moving here, I dedicated my time and my passion to help the youth with skill development in sports and in the classroom, preparing them for the next grade or the next level of commitment to school. I've seen a lot of positive things and I've also encountered a lot of negative things that I hope that this presentation shines light on. You may be curious as to why my title is Mentorship, Mental Health, and the Love of the Game. Well, I plan to fill you in with all those answers by the time we are done with this presentation. And I hope that it opens your eyes up to the things I've seen and encountered in the years of coaching and teaching the youth in St. Louis. During my research, a lot of questions were in mind, but these three questions were my key questions with the answers I needed to find. What impact does mentorship have on student athletes' mental health and improving their game on the court or in the classroom? What role does mentorship help with mental health of athletes? And the last one was, why is mental health important for student athletes? My purpose for this research was to simply save these young kids, these young student athletes, man. I'm so passionate about placing these kids in good situations. I help them get out of bad situations. And I'm a big advocate for student athletes because I was there before. I was a student athlete growing up. I suffered depression. I really had to check into my own mental health. And this was major for me because I have a lot of kids I coach, I teach, I reach out to yearly, daily, weekly. It's a lot of kids that I really am close with. And I see so many kids fail to the system, especially in this system in St. Louis and the areas that's here. A lot of these kids fail because they don't have guidance. So my purpose for this research was to really be an advocate and bring awareness to the community about mental health because it's needed. A lot of parents don't see those signs. And me being with kids all day and going to practice at nighttime, seeing these kids for hours, I'm checking in and seeing things that most parents or teachers won't see. So my biggest thing was to really educate the importance of mental health and give these kids an outlet. Mental health in my community has been a struggle. I encounter a lot of student athletes who struggle with depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, or even suicide attempts. This is a major thing that we lack to find assistance with these young student athletes. Most athletes feel like they don't have a way out of the situation that they might be in or even trust anyone to open up to. With my study, I've been able to open up a can of worms and I tamed it all, educating my student athletes and their parents along the way. How does that coincide with basketball, you say? Most of my student athletes, or most student athletes in the world, find sports as a coping outlet. If these students are not in a great space or great mood or are suffering for any depression, the greatest escape is doing something active. Relate back to me. I was a kid that gave up on wanting to play basketball, but now I realized like that's all I had. Like I didn't want to be. Well, I'm from Atlanta, so I didn't want to be in Atlanta just want to be cool. Like I want to do something myself. So you saying that you went through depression and you went through these motives and these things that kind of led you to be depressed. If you're still going right now, and you want to go to college, it's opportunity. So I mean, if you want to, sit down and have a discussion about getting recruited, and because I demand a lot of my players. Like I'm not doing it for money. I'm not doing it for exposure for me. It's really for y'all. So if you say, coach, like I really want to be serious, I want to do recruitment stuff. We're gonna sit down. We're gonna talk about the grades. We're gonna talk about what you need to take it, what you need to do outside of me, because I'm not doing it for my good, for my benefits, for you. So if I say, hey, you need to be in the gym without me 2 times out the week outside of your school, hey, you need to make sure you're talking to a mentor so you can see how you do to stay balanced. It's all kind of things. It's not just basketball. So like, if basketball don't work out, you still need to make sure that you get an education, that you're mentally okay, that you're doing things, you had that support. So like back to me. Like I was a kid that gave up on. I took 4 student athletes who are in high school currently, who have the same struggles and have the same goals. Their journey and paths are different, but the end goal is the same. During my study, the first thing I did was give them a pre-questionnaire as well as a survey for the family. These questions were going to help me understand where their mental state was at the moment. With all 4 student athletes, they all suffered slight depression. With the questions I conducted and the answers I received, I was able to understand what they felt at the moment. I also provided the Beck Suppression Inventory test. These questions were more strict and stern with understanding where the depression lied. Each student athlete had the same frustrations to begin with. They were upset that COVID took away their year before to where they could not play basketball and it slightly declined their GPA or their grades. So they were now looking for an outlet or a way to become happier with the situation. Another thing was home life. 2 of those 4 students had a rough upbringing and no support at home and felt that mentorship would help them a lot along the way. One family was super involved in a positive way to support their student athlete. Another family was involved heavy, but it was a negative input on their student athlete's life. The third family, the student athlete had an engagement and involvement with the parents, but they didn't seem too involved to want to understand what mentorship was and how important mental health was. The last family was very involved with the student athletes, but it affected how the student athlete home life was. That was the most interesting case I've seen. Before creating individual plans for each student athlete, I sat down with the student athlete as well as the parent to conduct the interview. I asked the student athlete 5 questions, which consisted of tell me about yourself, what's your current GPA, what do you think you struggle with, how's your day to day, and what do you think is right for you? Also, I asked, how do you rate your mental health and what are you needing help with? With the parents, I asked, what do you think your child's greatest strength is inside and outside the classroom? How would you rate their mental health? What is the struggle that you see your child is facing? How involved are you? And what's your understanding of mentorship? In the next few slides, you will see the response from both student athlete as well as their parents. This will allow you to see how engaged or how disengaged the parents were or were not. Each one of my student athletes had the same goal. Their goal was to compete at the highest level of college basketball that they possibly can. I challenged each student athlete to build up their GPA and go as hard on a basketball court as they do in the classroom. That's what makes them student athletes, right? Here's the fun part and also the good part, the interventions. I offered one-on-one training and one-on-one mentorship with each student athlete. I met with each student 2 times a week to talk about their mental health, their grades, and how to better their skills in the basketball court. I also use distant mentorship where if they needed to, they can give me a call, they can send me a text message, or they can even FaceTime me. Because sometimes you need to talk to somebody about what's going on throughout your day. The third one I used was group mentorship. I allowed each student athlete to be around their peers to motivate each other and support each other. After meeting consistently twice a week, talking about mental health, making plans to better mental health, and making goals to better our future, I asked the student athletes and their families if they made progress. Here are a few questions I asked the household. In the next few slides, you will see the results from both the student athlete and the parents. Even though these student athletes struggled throughout the school year with mental health and finding some way to believe in themselves, each student athlete received a scholarship to go to college on both an athletic and academic scholarship. After taking these student athletes to college visits, allowing them to talk to college coaches, coming to their practices, coming to their games, making sure their GPAs are up to par, I can honestly say this was a great experience, and I was proud that each student athlete was able to receive the reward of going to college for little to no money at all. The solution was simple. The biggest thing and the key was to listen. I placed these young student athletes in groups with similar people, and they felt like they had someone they can depend on. They felt like they had somebody they can trust. They felt like they had someone they could relate to. Not only was I there guiding these student athletes, sitting down with them weekly, building profiles for them to see how their mental health was weekly, putting them in a basketball gym, training them, and then making sure their grades was up to par. They had support with similar people, with similar goals, similar missions. I use basketball to relate better to my student athletes. I used basketball to help cope. So when I felt like a student athlete walked into the gym and I sensed they had a bad day or they looked sad or looked out or down, we did a lot of drills and then we talked because that opened them up to want to talk and express what they might have felt after a workout because they felt like they had a therapeutic way to express that. So listening, a safe place, teaching coping mechanisms, and having an outlet, that's the solution. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being open to learn about mentorship, mental health, and the love of the game. Again, my name is Dominique Stringer, and I hope that you guys enjoyed my presentation.